lesson 2 in our weaving our table runner. So I hope you got some homework done if you're going to work along with me with this project. So we'd have the quilting done on our background square, have all your strips ironed up ready. If you're following along with the notes that you've downloaded, you'd know how many of each one to make for each of the hearts. But we're just going to start off now by explaining a little bit about this weaving and how we're going to approach this. What we're going to do first is we're going to start laying down one of our small ones, which is the 3/8, and then a 5/8, a 3/8, a 5/8, 3/8, till we go down the heart. Then I'm going to show you how to work out your nice consistent space between these strips. Then we'll anchor those strips down, and then we're going to weave back this way. And it's a very simple lesson, but hopefully you'll pick up some good hints and tips and have fun with it. Now, one of the things that can happen if you make your strips well in advance, when you come back to use them, depending on how much heat you've put into the strips as you've ironed them, a little tip, while you're getting yourself ready, like this one here has started to pop open. And this is just a natural thing that fabric does. Once it cools down, it can pop open. A lot of people spray starch and everything like that, but I don't like to use the starch. That's a personal thing. That's your choice. But what I usually do is I come back with my little iron and I just sit the iron on there while I do a few other things. I might be getting all my tools ready. I just leave the iron there for a few minutes, like such. Do some other bits and pieces, because what that's doing is putting a nice little bit of heat back into it. So just fold it in, put the iron on. Okay, that'll just re-establish that fold line for you. Got a lot more heat back into it. It's going to be much easier to work with. If it kind of is popping open a little bit too much, it's going to be much harder to work with. Fabric, I believe, good quality fabric likes to be controlled. So control it just simply by re-ironing it. And it'll make it a lot easier for you when you take your next step. Now, the next thing we need is we're going to come back to our 8.5 inch square that we've drawn our heart onto. Remember, put that little reference line right down to the bottom and right up to the top so you know where the centre of the heart is. There's no use pressing it, because if you press it, by the time we put all the strips down here, you're not going to see that press line. So having a little reference line either side is the way to go. What I'm going to do, I've got all my strips made. I did my homework. Hope you did yours. So we're going to lay down the centre strip first. Just use a good pair of sharp scissors. And we're going to need at least a good 1/4 inch over the edge of your drawn shape. Now once you get that on there, nice and centered. Oops, I've got a thread hanging out there. This is where this awl is very handy. I'm going to use the fork pins. And you're going to use a fair few of these, so that's why it's really great to get a packet of these. And there's so many uses for the fork pins. I think they're the best pins ever invented. They're nice and sharp. So I'm pinning into my little workboard. You know, you might have another little sort of board that you want to pin into, but I like using the workboard because I can do everything. And it's called a 3-in-1 workboard. So now we're going to come and lay down one of our wider strips. And once again, trim off. It's going to get really messy around the outside edge, but that's okay. So just going to pop a pin in, pop a pin in. Now we're not, because you could be using different size strips to what I'm using. Everybody will be a little bit different in their sizes. You might want to make a bigger heart. But what we're going to try and do is equally fit this out so we end up with the same measurement on both sides. And that's why I've drawn this particular size heart, because it works perfectly for me. Now I'm going to use the little ruler. Love this little guy. And I'm leaving about a 1/16 of an inch gap between those two strips. that's kind of what I've worked out that's going to work for me. So I'm just going to make sure I've got that one pinned right. Now I'll come over to this side. I've got it lined up at the 16th of an inch here, and I'm just going to put a mark and a mark. That's where my next strip's going to go, which will be this little one. So this will take you a little bit of time, but it's, you know, sit down, relax, enjoy yourself, put a good movie on, put some music on, whatever you like. Good storybook. I love listening to audio books as I do these. And try and remember everything I'm teaching you, because there might be a bit of a quiz coming. I don't know. I like to see that people are trying to understand what we're doing. You can always ask questions of us. Put a question in the comments. Now we'll measure again. Just keep marking so that you've got a line to line up with. You might have to do some adjustments later on. Like some people use fusible web underneath their weaving. I personally prefer not to do that because I like it nice and loose. I like it so it just sits there nicely for me. But the pins are great because they've got, you know, like it's like two pins in one. It gives it a really good anchor for me. Another measurement. So next one, back to our light. Is this piece going to fit? Yes, just going to fit. Oh, that was good. Are you like me? Do you talk to yourself while you sew? It's always nice to sew with somebody else, isn't it? To get a mate to come along and join you. So we'd love to see photos if you do this. We're always encouraging people to send us photos of things they've made when they've done something with us. Now the next one. Oops. So you can see why it's important to get your measurements nice and even. And your strips will move around a little bit, so just be patient with it all. So that's one side done. So we're going to repeat it with the other side, but before I repeat with the other side, I'm just going to take one more step. Get this one down first off. Now what I'm going to do next, so that I don't get too many pins in the road, I'm going to come back with the glue, because I've found if I leave it pinned like this and do this other side and pin it, and then I start the weaving process, these pins can start to move, and I don't want any movement. I want these strips to stay nice and straight. So I find coming back and using the Roxanne glue, and if you've never used it before, if you're like me, you will absolutely love using it because it is a great product. So I'm just going to come through and put a little bit of glue. Now I'm gluing just outside that drawn line. You've got your pencil lines as your reference there to line it up against, so you won't lose your position. We'll do this end and then we'll turn and do the other end. You know, I presume you probably have people say to you, like they say to me, oh, you've got patience of Joe. Yeah, it's patience, but like even if you're cooking in the kitchen, you've got to have patience with everything, so it's the same. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hot iron on that and just to set the glue. You could let it dry naturally, but it's going to take like half an hour or so. So now those pieces won't shift anywhere. And now we'll come back and do this end. So we're just going to keep repeating the process till we get it all nicely anchored down. And like this glue, if I happen to put my iron on it, it's not going to stick to my iron. It's not going to mess up anything. It is made for fabric. And it's probably the most reliable fabric glue, I believe, on the market. I've been using it for decades and I really do enjoy using it. I use it for applique instead of using fusible web underneath my applique. I just glue everything down. When I wash my project for the first time, the glue all washes out. Now, one little tip, which I'll show you here, if I happen to pull this too tight, you can see it's going to buckle up. So you need to keep it sitting really nice and flat. So I've got that end down. Just go through and check that you've, eyeball it to make sure you've got it pretty well even. And then press this end. And then we just keep going over the other side. So this will just take a few minutes for me to do this side. But hang with me because I want to show you some tips on the weaving so that you can get a really nice finished item. A little bit of glue. So you can see I'm gluing down now. But I've got to make sure that I get my distances exactly right. And sometimes you can get off a little bit, and once you've glued it down, you've got to come back and take it off. That's why I would prefer to pin each of these to get my consistent measurement right before I do all the gluing. So I'm going to mark it first. So I hope all these little tips just help you be nice and accurate. I prefer to take the time in preparation to get the projects coming out nice. But it's your work, so it's whatever you're happy with. Everybody else. So I don't know if you've seen on my YouTube channel, I've done a woven vest. Just more or less using the same process of making strips up like this. But when I did the woven vest, I put batting inside the strips to make it nice and warm. So there's so many things you can do with weaving. No right, no wrong way, no rules. Okay, I'm getting close to the edge. Now you probably realise that I've used these specific size strips to fit in the heart shape that I've put in for your downloadable instructions. If you're going to adjust the size of the heart pattern, you'll need to adjust the size or the amount of strips that you're going to use. Next strip down, we've only got 2 to go. And then we'll be on, oops, I didn't anchor that end down. Silly of me. Okay. Last one. One left here. So there it is. Okay, so that's fitted our sizes in perfectly. So we'll now come back and do the gluing. Usually takes about an hour, hour and a half to make up one of these from start to finish. But as always, if you're doing it for the first time, take your time. It might be a bit slower, but it's not a race. Getting something finished that you can be really proud of. Yahoo, we're done. So once again, get them nice and tight, but not tight enough that it's going to pucker it. And then come back and give it that nice bit of heat in it. Oh, look at that. Looks like nothing. It soon will look like a nice little heart. Okay, just strips of fabric. So now we're going to come back and we're going to weave under and over. So start with a nice edge. We're going to use the bodkin. Now if you've never used one of these before, it's got like little claws in the end. Put it into your fabric and close up with that little loop. That makes it nice and tight. So I prefer to start in the middle, and you might want to put a little bit of a line across here to get a straight line. So you could use your marking pencil or just use your hero marker just to give you a reference. Obviously, if you mark with the marking pencil, you've got a mark you've got to get rid of, but with this you don't have to do that. So you can start by going under, or you could go over. So I'm going to go over, under. But I just find having this bodkin, it just makes it so much easier for me to come and do all of this than what it is with my fingers. Okay. So once again, go over the edge a little bit, remove your bodkin and trim back. Now I'm aligning it up on that line so that my first row stays nice and straight. Oops, can't get hold of the pins. Pull it so it's nice and firm and pin this end. So that's our first row. Next row we're going to start by going under. Just get it in the centre. We're going to go under and over. So you can understand now and appreciate why I wanted these ends really anchored down well, because there's going to be a lot of movement in these fabrics. You don't want them to all pop out. So I'm going to do a few rows first, and then we'll come back and get our measurements right, because I want to leave the same amount of gap between these ones as what I've left here. So that's where it gets a little bit fiddly. I'm not going to pin those ones down yet. So stick with me for another few minutes till we get these done. So we're going to go under, under. So I really need to show you how to finish off the ends. One wants to pop back out. Right, now we'll come back with our ruler. Want that 1/16 of an inch thereabouts. So this is the reason why we didn't want to cut the heart out, because you need that extension to be able to fit around with it and anchor it down properly. This is where this little ruler has become a very good friend of mine. It's 1 inch by 10 inches, so it's a handy little thing to have. So this way we can start gluing, because we don't have to fit it to that. We've just got this length to fit. Now we'll come back this one. The awl, this is where it becomes very, very handy. I get a lot of people say to me, well, I'm all about the tools. Yes, I am about the tools, because I like the right tool to help me get a nice finish on things. The tools do help me immensely. Got the right tools, they do a good job. Now, is that one going to fit? Not quite. I'll keep it for down further. Right, so this one was under, over. Now I can't, just no need to put one here, because to go under this one, because here is my edge. So I just need to go over that one. So the strips will get shorter now as I work down, so you can use up a lot of the scrappy bits that are cut off. I don't need to go under that one. Get our measurement right. Okay. A lot of times I've been weaving and then I look at it when I finish and think, oh my gosh, that one's over instead of under. Very easy to get a bit confused as you go through, so just keep giving it a press. Might use these longer bits up here. Let's see if I've got some more little pieces. No, I'm going to have to make some more. So we'll just review that again. Let me just set that down there. I'm going to use the 5/8. I won't need a full length, so I'll just cut a little bit off. Remember, fold in and in till it meets. Getting the measurement accurate to start with is what's going to keep it accurate all the way through. Oops, wrong one. 5/8. Up and back down. Pop that pin in and just push. You can hear me tapping it with the iron. That doesn't hurt it. It just sometimes helps it slide through. This is a thicker homespun, so it's not as smooth as what some of the other fabrics have been. So I'm just tapping it. There we go. So it doesn't take long to make the strips. Come back here. Okay, a couple of rows to go, so we'll be under, over, under, over, under. Now if we were going to be doing one of the other blocks. I'm not going to weave all of them because it's all basically the same. But just let me take you through a few little tips when we're going to be doing some of the other patterns that we have. If I was going to be doing my weaving on the diagonal, like on one of the other two blocks there, I would draw a diagonal line for my first one. And then I would have that as my guide. And if I was coming back the diagonal this way, once I got it woven one way, I'd come back and I'd draw the diagonal line the other way. Just have that guide to help you keep it all straight. Okay, bit of glue. But I'd love to see what you've come up with because I believe everybody will weave differently. There's some wonderful books out there with weaving, but I just make up my own as I go. So here is the tip of my heart. So I can use, that one's a bit small. Over, under, over. We're going to need one more little piece at the bottom, so that's where we can use up this little bit. Once we get this done, you'll be able to see. Now I can't get under that piece because it's glued down, so what I do is I just pull it back. I'm going to pull this one back. Pull this one back. Go under, over, under, over, just to fill in that little bit there. Now we can just fiddle to get our measurements right. Sixteenth of an inch. Now this could even be a pot holder if you just want to try one. You could put some wadding and backing on it, bind around it and make them up for Christmas gifts. I'm going to put a bit of glue under this one and getting this all lined up. I can just put those all in place. And we'll put the iron on it. There you go. That's how I'd finish off down there. If you happen to get any glue on your fabric and it's showing up, just get a damp cloth. It's water soluble. Just damp it out. There's my bodkin. So we're going to do the same at this top area. It's really easy when you've got a good full run like this. It's not as fiddly. And then this will be the final one. This one's just not going to fit under, so pull that one back. Oops. Turn it right way up. And we'll have to do the same this end. Okay. And we'll just come through and get everything . This is where you need to take your time. Oh, look at that. That row is wrong. Too busy thinking about getting finished. So it's under, over. So it's easy to make a mistake. That looks much better. So now I have to fix this one. But just be aware they're the sort of things, once you lose concentration like I just did, over, under. It's very easy to make that mistake. It's not a mistake, it's just an oops. Pull it on through, come on. Okay, and it just fits nicely. So there is our heart all woven up. As I said, just now take your time to come back and adjust anything that may need adjusting that's popped out. Just fitted that one in nicely. All right. It doesn't look right down here, but this is where we're cutting back to, so we've got plenty of space to work with here. So now I just need to glue these few down that are not glued down yet. And then we'll take you to the next step so that you'll be ready for the third lesson, which is going to be the exciting part where we're going to put it onto our blocks. We're going to put the bias around the edge and then we're going to join together. So we'll be doing a lot at the sewing machine next time. So once you get that all done, your next step is going to be to put your pattern back on here. Now remember we drew that line down the bottom here and up the top. That's to line up your pattern. So what you need to do next is get your fabric marking pencil and mark just around the outside edge. All the way around the edge. Just needing to change coloured pencils here so I can see it. Once you've done this, you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to sew on that line. Just all the way around. Because you want to get it to the same shape. And once you've stitched around it, you're simply going to cut it back about 1/8 of an inch away. So you're going to stitch on this drawn line and then you're going to trim it back. So you've just got a little bit of seam allowance there. Just let me show you these. I don't know if the camera can pick this up. Where I've got that little bit of seam allowance. 1/16 of an inch is plenty, 1/8 of an inch. This is going to cover that. So once you've cut it out, you've got a lovely, really neat heart woven up. These could be circles, they could be rectangles, they could be squares, they could be absolutely anything. Like here, I've made a placemat. This one here is a cushion, but I've just made the strips up and then I went and stitched really close on the edge just to give it a little bit of a difference. And then I've woven that up. So there's so many things that you can do, and it's helping me get rid of a lot of my fabric out of my stash. So give it a go. But get ready for next class. As I said, get your heart to this stage. Stitch around it, trim it back. Then you're ready for the next lesson where we'll do the bias, and then I'm going to show you how to join them together, quilt as you go. And this quilt as you go technique can be used to join any of your quilts together, any of your table runners. You can do so many things with it. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.